Hello again, Axel. Okay, so after that very flaming speech
Amazing, yeah.
by Mr. Kekwe, exactly, a tough act to follow. So, Axel, would you like to give us a short overview, or would you like to do a shortened version of your presentation?
I would do a very short version of it.
Okay.
But I was really happy to not use my time at full, because I have to say this was really an amazing presentation. And this is not just for Africa, it's also for Southeast Asia and for those people from Latin America. I mean, if I look at this, it was the summary of all economic models and mechanisms that make a country successful, not in the just in the economic model, but also in the model of self-esteem and everything that comes together. So yeah, from my side, a very special thanks. This was amazing, and I was very happy you had the time to join us.
Great.
So I try to make it very quick in my speech about the rise of the innovations age, and it falls actually very well into what Mr. Kekwe just said. We are entering a new era, and this new era is at least in two ways, very different than anything before. Because everything we had before was one product invention after the other and one built on top of the other. And in the last couple of years, we realized that the other inventions sort of branched out in multiple different ways. And that is the opportunity for every emerging country, if they understand what we just heard, that the intellectual property is actually the driver for success. And the intellectual property or the ideas or the ideation is not something that only one nation has or another. We are born, we heard this earlier from Michael Vaz, we are born champions. We are born with creativity, every single human. We only kill creativity once in a while at school when we were taught, don't be loud, don't say this, don't do this, and don't do that, but do this, and then repeat and do this again. And over time, we're losing our creativity. But at the end of the day, the innovation and with it, intellectual property is what makes us go forward. Allow me a very quick synopsis of time. 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens had this very first invention, and this was in Africa. And this was actually the spear. And this spear gave us an additional reach, a new food chain, the ability to make something. We realized if we can make something, that we can change things to our advantage. It took 270,000 years to improve that spear. I mean, from just a raw piece of wood to actually a very powerful spear. It was simply just an improvement. It was not another invention. The next invention actually came in 270,000 years later, and this was the bow and the arrow. Because now the spear could fly much faster. We could much better direct it, and we could have the spear, now the arrow, be with way more power going into a deer or whatever we were hunting. So, and this was then going on for another 29,600 years of improvement. There was a couple other things at the same time. We already started with pottery. We started with farming and so on about 12,000 years ago. And then there comes a next event, and that was the invention of the catapult. And if you see this red orange bar on the top, this entire bar is the 270,000 years. The first one up here where you see probably my mouse was the invention of the bow and arrow. And then this was here, the invention of the catapult. And 1,600 years ago, the Chinese invented the cannon. It was associated with the invention of the gunpowder. And that was, again, 1,600 years later only. So the next bar is much closer. And when we go further, in the 1940s, Wernher von Braun actually invented the rocket. Interesting, it's still the same movement. We shoot something out, but the velocity has changed, the mechanism has changed, the power has changed, and it took only 750 years from the last invention to the next. And the next invention is so close that I couldn't put the bars together, and that is actually the landing on the moon. People may debate whether we ever were there or not, but we know we have a space station and we have a sphere now that is much more powerful because we can get in orbit. So the inventions that we have shrank in time dramatically, and they shrank in time because we had more and more and more and more, and with more inventions, we actually sparked more inventions. Currently, believe it or not, we have 30 new patents every single minute. So in this 30 minutes we're talking, there is already, 900 new patents filed. So innovation exploded just in the last couple 20, 30, 40 years. And that is the start of the innovation age, because we don't have classic one innovation after the other anymore, the steam engine, then later on come the car, and then later on the TV, and then later on the internet. It seems to be in parallel. So this is the innovation tree 2020. So it started with a plow and with a house and with a wagon, but we have a major network of innovation because every innovation builds on another. So we don't have in our brain the capability to create, but we have the ability to compose. There was no way in heaven that those people who developed the spear could at next develop a cruise missile, because there were hundreds and hundreds of steps in between. And so we have to realize that we are not actually creating anything. We're seeing and learning from nature, and then we're composing it. And that process gives us now an almost infinite growth of innovation. And the innovation tree in just another 10 years would look like that. Much bigger in just 10 years versus 300,000 years in the past. And the most powerful thing about that is we need more innovators, and we get them from emerging countries. Because like Mr. Wacke just said, I mean, we need to understand the intellectual property that we have in our brain need to be used in order to get our countries to the next level. And as I said earlier in the opening keynote this morning, all the activities that have been happening in previous developed countries were also financed somehow. The interesting thing, Germany didn't have money, so the money came actually from the UK. When Alfred Escher built his railroad, Switzerland, as the poorest country, didn't have money. The money came from other countries, France, from the UK, sometimes I believe even Austria. So capital is needed, but it doesn't need to come from internally, because typically in poor countries, there is no local money available. But also entrepreneurs have one capability. At least they start something with nothing. They start something with just an idea. Then they put together something together with others. And if you're a solopreneur, you will have not, and I repeat that you will have not the capacity to grow a company. If you were a founder's team with three, these three brains are more than just 1 + 1 + 1. There is a significant difference between one brain and three brains, not just two more. It's so much more if they are from diverse backgrounds. If there's one is the engineering brain, the other is the business brain, yet the other is the visionary and driver and marketing and salesperson, then the entire company looks fundamentally different. In the last 50 years, there's not a single founder on earth who was alone driving their company all the way to the top. Not a single one. So that means one key feature for you as an entrepreneur is go together with two others. If you're the expert, look for people who are not experts, but maybe can sell your expertise, and they can sell the expertise of you as one of the most profound thinker in this particular space. And you will maybe dismiss him because he has no clue, he's just a salesman. Well, without the salesman, your idea would never go into the market. So innovation and to innovate is a talent given by nature, not by any culture. If you're an innovator, then you're one of the very few people on earth who can come up with an idea, find a team to build it, and drive it. I think Tobias said it very clearly. I mean, alone, he wouldn't be able to do that. And it wasn't that it sparked and all of a sudden they ran. No, they saw a problem that they wanted to solve, and they solved it together, and they solved it in an amazing way. So the gift is not taken from nature either, but it may be taken from cultures. So the one thing I think we have all to be worried about is when cultures take the entrepreneurial spirit or the innovative creativity. So just don't let it happen. And there is no culture and there is no government on earth that can take that. And there is no government that even want to take it. They may not understand that your crazy idea will change the world. And it's not just the government. Most people will not understand. So this is one of the lonely moments of innovators. So therefore, entrepreneurship, the thing that you're going forward with is envisioning a world others cannot see. And don't call them idiots and they don't get it and they're stupid and what have you. They cannot see it because it's only and exclusively in your brain. Your brain cells compose this idea and nobody looks into your brain. They cannot even. And unless you can articulate it, they will not see it and they will not understand it. And envisioning a solution others don't believe is possible is a typical behavior for entrepreneurs. You know, you heard Marita and I, we founded 4 companies. All 4 were disruptive, all 4 were innovative. And in all 4, I can tell you, we had more people who said, Axel, this one is not possible. I mean, the first wasn't possible. The second was probably not possible. The third was, you cannot build XYZ company just because the first did work very well. Nobody believed in even in the fourth. And that's what we're trying to do right now, assembling from around the world, basically, and making them just through inspiration and support build the same type of economy than we had in other countries. I can tell you, most my friends even say, Axel, come on, you're taking it too far. This is not gonna fly. I mean, you cannot, take all these countries and make them successful. And I always say, no, I don't make it. I just inspire it. Making is done by people like you. So it's people who are breaking rules, and that would never, and others would never dare to touch. Breaking rules is a part of entrepreneurship. If you follow the rules on the stream and do like everybody else, then you will come out with something everybody else already has or thinks. If you break the rules, then you will become an entrepreneur. Risking everything to make it happen is part of entrepreneurship. Investing everything you have to work it out with not a single penny from the outside is part of entrepreneurship. Most entrepreneurs or so-called entrepreneurs come and say, I have this idea, can you fund it? Well, you would not find anybody decent who fund an idea because we have 14 trillion ideas every year on our planet. Ideas is no value. The value comes with actually making it happen. And making the impossible a reality, that is entrepreneurship. And then bring a solution around the world. And that makes prosperity. So here is a list of the export volume per capita. It's on Wikipedia, but even economists were astounded when I told them the impact. And if you look at this list, Luxembourg, Liechtenstein, Hong Kong, Singapore, Qatar, Switzerland, the Arabs, Belgium, Netherlands, Kuwait, and so forth. You think this is the list of the richest countries in the world? Yes, it is. It is the richest, it's the list of the richest countries. But it is actually, this list is composed of export per capita from top to bottom. And the bottom is Congo, Brunei, Afghanistan, Madagascar, Ethiopia, Nepal, Somalia, and so on. And there are some of the poorest countries in the world. They do not export anything, nothing. And that is tough. And if we look at this list, we realize we need to get to export for one single reason. Every product you are exporting and you get money for, you get also tax for, but the tax money doesn't come from somebody that it also needs to be spent to make the country nice. It actually comes from a different country. So I was initially thinking, wow, but this is bad because we're basically grabbing capital from a foreign country, no matter rich or poor, and that is not fair. So I was thinking, why is this actually working? Should it work? Or is this grabbing something? And there is proof in this very list that it isn't grabbing something, but the power is on the interconnected economies. The more you do together, the richer you get. Three founders get more wealth as one alone. And this sounds to be all counterintuitive, but that is how nature works. And there's millions of actually examples. But the one I want to point to is Europe. Europe is as a somewhere down here. Here is Europe. Why is Europe on position number 60 when most of the countries here are in the top 50 and 20 and so on? Because Europe is not exporting a lot, which means most European countries export to each other. And that makes all the countries more wealthy than Europe in the context of all the countries together. But Europe is not a country, it's the nations. In Europe, they get more wealthy. We take our oranges from Spain, our shoes and everything leather from Italy, also the wine, even some cars. People take our cars in Germany and we carry it out into other countries. The banking system is coming from Switzerland. Trains coming partly from Germany, partly from others. There's a lot of aeronautics coming from France. There's a lot of capital exchange in London and the UK. And so we deal with each other. And here comes what I want you to leave today with. When you innovate something and try to solve a problem that we all have on Earth and then sell it to all of us, then we, even as a developed country, we would benefit from your product that you develop in Nepal or in Uganda or in Nigeria or wherever. And you would export it. And that would make your country more powerful from an economic point of view. Ours not less powerful because we get a solution from you that we want and need and use. Without innovation, the likelihood that we buy anything from you is so much smaller that it probably doesn't count. What do we buy from you? Maybe coffee, maybe gold, maybe some of the real estate, maybe some of the natural resources, but that is limited. And today, with one exception, the Arabian Peninsula, because they have so much oil, it's the only area where natural resources created wealth. But it's only the only area of super rich people who are very, very afraid that they will lose sooner or later everything when we don't need oil anymore. So this is no sustainable solution, but innovation is. An innovation economy is driven by export, not by making it happen, by export. That brings the economy forward. And since we learned that if we work together, we can actually have all a better life. And so I said at one point in time, even the most powerful country unleashes their biggest wealth when we made every country on the planet wealthy. And that has been the case for the last 12,000 years. And so all it takes is entrepreneurship and amazing ideas, teams and amazing people who make it happen. And we need to take, all of us, take this as our responsible to make it work. Today, with all the fabrics of NGOs and foreign money and foreign investments and donations to the wazoo, we only make you lazy. And so therefore, we need to stop donations and we need to start getting you out of the eggshell yourself with your ingenuity, because that is humanity's biggest opportunity for prosperity for all nations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Axel, for concluding our conference today with those very inspiring comments and elements.